Welcome to the Influencer Show with your host, Trishawn Ben Salmi.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Influencer Show, where I interview people who can help influence the way you live life in a number of different ways. I'm your host, T7, and today we have a very special guest with us. So if you'd like to introduce yourself to listeners and let them know a little bit about you.
My name is Jeff Fouchey. I run an ed tech company from the Santa Monica area. We work with nonprofits and school districts to help students maximize all of their financial aid. Most people don't know, but college is free for most. They just don't know it. We guide them towards it.
That is absolutely.
For having me, by the way. Thank you very much for having me, and I appreciate your time, and look forward to speaking to you more about this.
No, thank you, and thank you so much for sharing that. That's really interesting, something that could actually help so many people. And why don't you share with us why you do what you do?
I do what I do because I have a love for education. I was running I originally, as an entrepreneur, started an education company that had to do with text messages. While I was doing that, I learned a lot about the financial sector and understood that it's really not fair the way it's set up. And it's ran like a business, and that's what people should understand, that if they're going to approach college, they have to understand they're not there like they are. Like, public system is there to give you education until your kid gets out of high school for free. College has nothing to do with that. It's a business, and you need to approach it that way.
Exactly, definitely. And what would you say has been like the biggest influence on you that you wish you had known sooner?
The biggest influence on me that I wish I knew sooner was in my early 20s, when I realized the real true impact that something like reading has on you. I think growing up, too many people just tell you to read. They don't tell you how and what the cause and effect will be. And what I mean by that is, if you just read for homework, your mind does not absorb or connect as much as if you read something you actually are interested in. And if you take a class in college, some of them will teach you this stuff about how your brain operates on pleasure and pain, and how some people look at a plate of food and associate pain with finishing that plate, and some people associate pain with not finishing that plate of food. So we all look at things. Perception is huge in life, and I think that's a big one here.
Definitely, perception, like how you said, it's something that is so important. And if you're then able to shift someone's perspective and just the way they look at things, it can definitely help them a lot, both now and in the long run.
Absolutely. And just perspective in general when it comes to reading, it's broken down to, if you look at people's intelligence and you look at how, I think I've read around 55, 56 is like a man's like plateau of intelligence. But you hear people all the time say, oh, I'm getting older, I'm not as sharp as I used to be. It's not that they're necessarily not as sharp as they used to be because they're getting older. It's because they're not doing what they used to do. Comprehension and memory is a skill, just like shooting free throws or shooting a three-pointer. The more you practice those skills, the better you will become at them. So as a lot of people are getting older and they stop reading like they used to and stop and being into the things that they used to do, their mind is going to absolutely slow down. That's why you can see 80-year-old people at the gym and look like they're a 35-year-old. It's amazing what some people look like at the gym and they're in their 70s.
Definitely. Just that consistent, just keeping that consistency, it definitely does pay off and reap big rewards, definitely.
Absolutely. And, people think your IQ is natural. Some people do, a lot of kids growing up, but your IQ goes up with the more skills you build around it.
Yeah.
Your comprehension and memory is really big, because remember, that associates to everything. Your ability to remember what you just read and connect it to what you read in the future and what you've read in the past. And those are huge when it comes to trying to be creative. And I think one of the big things the education system does is it absolutely does take away from the creative side of students' minds as they grow up. We're taught to conform a certain way, but that's one thing I think entrepreneurs never lost, is that creative side. Every entrepreneur I've ever talked to has a very creative side, to where, something popped in their head and they had a creative idea about it.
Definitely, I definitely agree. And what would you say people could do to stay motivated during moments of crisis?
Absolutely. try to build skills around what you're already doing. For example, I've started getting certified in AWS cloud certifications. Not something I tell my friends about. It's just we're quarantined. So if I'm home, I have work to do. And if I have extra time, some of the things I normally would do get so boring now. It's like, why not? People talk about learning a new skill. Well, one of the best skills you can get out there right now are certifications for AWS and companies like that, because working with the cloud is the future.
Definitely, yeah. Especially like how you said, now we have a lot of time on our hands, so we might as well put it to good use and be very productive with it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of times, being alone, anybody has negative thoughts. And I think people don't realize that. We all have them. It's just someone like you and me, we're better at pushing them to the side, not of kind of just ignoring them, because we've for so long have created the habit of staying positive and thinking about what's the next step forward, not about what we just messed up on. I mean, I could sit here and tell you about all the things I've messed up on if you really want to learn about mistakes in the startup world. But, I try to focus on going forward and moving forward and having a positive impact on what we're doing next.
I definitely agree, especially that's a skill that many people often find the hardest one to acquire, because they often have these negative thoughts that creep in, and they then let them sit there and grow instead of learning how to handle and manage them.
Mm-hmm. And think about it this way too. If you mismanage $100,000 of an investment you're given, okay, you could either look at that and ponder on it, or you can look at the mistakes you made, why you shouldn't have made those decisions and what you could have made. And now you've learned from it, and now you come out of there stronger. So you could take two perspectives, two different perspectives. The perspective I choose to take is the one where I've learned something and I feel more confident now coming out of it because I know not to do that anymore. And I think that's something more and more kids need to understand from a very early age. Failing is okay. We all do it. Eric, I think his name's Eric Thomas. One of the speakers I listen to, he always says, "Fail forward." I love that, fail forward. It's like, because every single successful person relates to that. And I just hope to be someone like him one day and be able to, look back and be like one of those speakers who have the ability to just look back on all these situations and just have so many different stories to tell.
I definitely think that is something that is just so important, and then by doing so, people are then able to, as you said, fail forward, and they're then able to look at all the mistakes, or actually look at it as feedback, and they're then able to then put steps moving forward, learning from that lesson.
Absolutely.
And what advice would you give to those who may be looking into higher education?
I think higher education is great because it opens doors for you. I think the best part of higher education is networking. I think one of the biggest mistakes students don't do when they go to a university is network with their department. So whatever department you're majoring in, get to know those teachers. You don't have to spend weekends with them, but go by during school hours that, use their time wisely and for yourself, for your classrooms. And you're in that department, they're a teacher in that department. So absorb their knowledge, learn from them. Prepare before you go in there. Don't just go in there and wing it and think I'm just going to create some time with them. Prepare at least a few questions to go in there so they feel like you really have had something solid to come in here with. When you make them feel like their information is valuable to you, they're more likely to help you. Hey, we're all going to hear a lot of no's in life, but there are a lot of people out there willing to help.
No, exactly. Especially like how you said, just about having those questions and just preparing, saying that way you then feel like you've left with something that you're then able to put actionable steps towards, and that you're then able to work on and improve yourself as a person.
Exactly. You need those actionable steps that you just mentioned. Without those, you just have a wish, right? Yeah. You have to have them.
Definitely. And if you had a megaphone and you could say one thing to the world that would have a lasting influence, what would it be and why?
Oh, wow. That's a big one. there's so many different things I think everyone would want to yell to the world, whatever it may be. But ultimately, I think it would just be, there's so many different angles you could take with that. And in life, I would have to gear towards, if I had a megaphone, it would really depend on how long you're going to give me that megaphone for. Do I get to speak for 5 minutes, Trey? Or do I get to speak for 5 seconds? So that's a big one too. But if let's just say I had 5 seconds, I mean, love and kindness over everything. I mean, at the end of the day, help others and those will help you. It comes down to understanding that if you put yourself out there and you try to help others will try and help you.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to put yourself out there, though. If you're just going to have an idea and put a whole business plan together and a marketing plan together and sit in a room and never go network, that's really tough to do.
Yeah.
You have to put yourself out there. You have to be willing to look like a fool. This is some of the greatest people have said, before you can look great, right? You have to put yourself out there, be a novice, get out there, shake hands, talk to people, learn how to talk to people, learn how to, learn what happens behind closed doors with those conversations, rather than you just always wondering what happens. You do have to put yourself out there and get associated with people. Ultimately, you will learn the most from those who you surround yourself. And I'm sure you know that.
Definitely.
Majority of what you learn will be who you surround yourself with. Even if you're a doctor, a nurse, an entrepreneur, it does not matter. You surround yourself with people that do not put time into their craft, you will do the same. Meaning when I surround myself with people in a craft that I enjoy, I continue that. Those conversations are about things that I enjoy, that I'm going to learn from. I'm learning from the people around me at all times. I mean, ultimately in life, to be really, to be, whether you're at a company or you're running your own company, the most value you bring is based upon how resourceful you are, how you can execute and how resourceful you are, whether it's your own knowledge or even it's just your ability to you have someone in your phone that you can call and contact and leave a message with and know that they'll get back to you pretty soon because they have the knowledge you need. That's pretty resourceful. Not a lot of people have that ability to just get anything done. There are definitely things I don't know, but I have people on my phone I can absolutely call. Some of the best things you can do is network makes you stronger. It makes you stronger in so many areas. It's basically like the best way I could explain it would be like in your human body, like your knee is stronger when the muscles around it are stronger.
Yeah.
Okay. And the joints are strong. And when your joints and your muscles are stronger in your knee, that's when it's strongest. And you as an entrepreneur are not at your strongest peak unless you have those muscles around you to help push you up more. You ultimately cannot do it alone. Even Elon Musk, someone like that, has people around him that you don't know about that helps push him up. Is actionable as he is, and that guy seems like he doesn't sleep, but he still has people around him to make him better.
Yeah, of course, definitely. So just about like having that team, having that support network around you, as you said, just to constantly push you and just constantly maybe even change your perspective as to how you look at things.
Absolutely. Keep in mind, Trey, we're all an untapped resource, right? This is the way I look at it. I didn't find out till I was 25 or 24. It wasn't until I was 24 or 25 I found out I could count cards. That is a skill I wish I knew when I was like 15, only because once I learned that I knew I had that, I was able to relate that to other skills I might have that will help me go forward and do something that I'm really good at. And to me, we're all an untapped resource until we build our brain up enough through comprehension and memory, through reading things we're actually interested in. I don't care if you're interested in fashion, sports, whatever it is, read it. You do that every single day. You're going to build that muscle up every single day. Eventually, you're going to untap that resource that's inside you. You're going to figure out what you're best at, and you're going to start moving forward in life a little bit easier.
Definitely. Just about like constantly just working on your craft and just constantly trying to improve it, really. Definitely so important. And what advice would you give to those who may have had their very own £1,000,000 idea at a time like now?
Start talking to people, honestly, because you have to. I think one of the things people are scared of the most is that if you talk to people, they're going to steal your idea.
Yeah.
But what people don't realize is, like, yes, they all hear about the Mark Zuckerberg Facebook thing where everybody, when they tried to claim he did that to them. 99.9% of the time, that person you're talking to is not going to steal your idea. And it could, because you're talking to people around you that you're not talking to people, like, you're not going to successful people that you have no idea who they are and talking to them about it. You're going to, like, your friends, your family, and just what I mean by that is get all their feedback, even if it's negative. There's always going to be some negative people and they'll have some feedback for you, but there's always going to be positive people that are going to support you and have feedback for you as well. And I think that's something that will help get, the reason why I say talk to people is because that will help get your idea onto paper. That will help you figure out more than just an idea. Like, okay, what type of people like this? What type of people don't? What are my target markets? Where okay, geographical areas, where are those at? What are more popular? What are less popular? So, I mean, you can start moving through the whole idea of an actual business and when you start looking at these, a lot of people look at business plan frameworks and it tells you, okay, answer this question, put information here and things like that. And, it's very intimidating to someone who's never had an idea before that they've wanted to move forward. So for those people, I would say the more you talk to people about it and the more feedback you get, I think the more confidence you're going to have about it and start putting it on paper and can actually start making steps towards making it a goal. Ultimately, every single person that's had a business idea just started as an idea.
Yeah.
They had to take it farther. They had to take it to a farther, further ahead and to a different step. And they decided to either do it or don't. There are so many people out there, Trey, that have had $1 million ideas that have never acted on it. There are people out there that have seen ideas come see a commercial for it and be like, oh my gosh, I thought about that 8 years ago. Well, so did that person. They started it. So, I mean, everyone's different, but at the end of the day, I mean, ultimately, I just say, when it comes to educating yourself, read the things that you love, read about those subjects, and try and start from there to go out farther and learn more and more, so you can learn more about yourself, what you do and don't like, and where you want to go.
Yeah, it's definitely important, especially just like as you said, getting to talk about, you're then able to get the feedback on it. You can then make adaptations. You can then do a load of things, and also it then pushes you to then take that action, take the steps in the right direction to then get out even sooner, because then you're getting all this feedback on it, and it then makes you even more excited just to push it out, really.
Yes. And, follow people on social media that you like, that are in the industries you want to get in, and just read the articles about the industry. Because if you want to get into business, you might as well start reading articles in that industry and getting up to date and see if it's something you really want to do. No matter what industry you go into, it's going to be challenging. And there's different challenges for everything. You could start something that nobody has ever heard of. Something so brand new that you think is just amazing that people are going to grab onto. Well, here's your huge challenge for that. Educating the market is really expensive. To educate people on what this actually is, if no one's heard of it. Or you can go into a market that everyone's heard of, but yet maybe you think it's better than what this person did before. Like, for example, Blockbuster, when Redbox came in, to when Netflix came in, they were all going into something that was already there, but yet they just made it better. So they didn't have to educate the market on what they were producing.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just about making that choice at the end of the day and just getting clear as to what it is that you want to do, and then how you can then go about doing so.
Exactly. You're really good at sitting still, Trey. I got to say, I move around a lot when I speak, and I move my hands a lot, so it's hard for me to sit still.
A lot of practice. And what would you say has been like that pivotal point along your journey, and what did it then teach you?
Pivotal point along my journey, a big one for me was learning a lot about my past. And I say that because when you start a journey, even if you're an entrepreneur and you're really motivated and you're going along, you're going to hit some really tough parts. Some really times where you're going to start questioning, should I keep going, and things like that. And there was a point where I was really considering making a different move. And what made me go on the journey was, make a long story short, I was having breakfast with a family member, and I was told the truth. Not that I didn't know the truth, just didn't know the whole story behind my grandmother. And that day forward, really, I don't know why, it just made me realize that no day I have will be as tough as she had. And that was a huge motivational point for me. So when you're talking about a pivotal point, that was a big point, because I was really going to stop doing what I was doing. This was before this was when it was just an idea. And so, of this latest company. And then I heard about that, and that's what made me push forward and want to keep going. And just knowing some of your family's past and what they've been through makes you just kind of open. You're like, wow, okay, like, yeah, I've never had a day that tough. And it really made me realize that what I feel tough now isn't really tough. It's perspective. And that's when I started to and not that I didn't have good perspective then, but my always staying positive made me look at it differently and understand that I was looking at this with the wrong perspective. And it made me, and I pushed forward, and and I've never forgotten that story. That was absolutely the most pivotal point. And there's been others. There's definitely motivational factors all around, all along. I listen to motivational speakers a lot just because it's refreshing. It's like some people like to listen to music. Some people like to, it just depends on what you like to listen to. I like to listen to a few different speakers here and there just because they have great perspective. And that's what I like to hear from them. I like to hear their perspective on success, on all these different subjects they speak about. And so, yeah, that would be my pivotal point, was learning my grandmother's history.
That is absolutely amazing. I think that's something that is just so important, because then by being able to then look back on the story and think like, yes, things may seem hard now, and as you said, they will never be as hard as it was for that individual, and then that you can then use that, as you said, just to motivate and just push you forward, and then constantly keep you in that positive mindset, and just maintaining that steady focus as to what it is that you want to achieve.
Absolutely. That is absolutely the perfect point. You hit it on the nail.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. And if you had to be another person for one day, who would it be and why?
For one day, I would definitely go in the White House and take over for public education, and immediately putting guidelines for each state on how to go to college for free if you qualify for it. Because they exist already. Just to give you a small example, in California, it's very open, meaning it's like this. You get a 3.0, you come from an underserved community. In a lot of these communities, say you get free lunch, that usually means if you're getting free lunch, you qualify for a Cal Grant, which is part of your tuition, and then your Pell Grant comes in federal. That pays for a California state college, and you can live at home and commute. Not all states allow you to live at home and commute the first 2 years. So this is where it gets tricky. A lot of families are applying to college without really knowing, well, can I do this or can I do that? But there should be exact guidelines. Personally, I think it should be taught in high school. Every single student should have to take a financial aid class and be taught based on their state. What is their state grant, their federal grants available? What are those income limits they can speak to their parents about, so they can understand what their proper strategy should be. Because in Texas, you cannot go directly to a state school and live at home. You have to live on campus, which is how they get you. They pay for all your tuition fees, but they make you pay for room and board, which is roughly like $15,000 a year. And that's where they get the kids in debt. So they need to go, so there's different strategies to do it. Now, obviously private schools are different. This is a long conversation that you don't want to have right now. But yeah, that'd be absolutely the first thing I would do. I would make sure every single family understands how to maximize their money for college immediately and what all the strategies are, rather than leaving it up in the air. Because right now, if you want to hire like a college planner, they usually charge anywhere from $2,500 to, I've seen charge sometimes up to $6,000-$7,000 to work with them. So, it's not cheap to work with people that can actually get your family into college for free.
I definitely think that's something that is really important, especially just like, especially for those who may come from less advantaged backgrounds, because then they're then able to sort of
Mhm.
have that shot to then take things a lot further as to what they are passionate about, what they want to do with their lives. And I think it's something, as you said, that should be made, that people should be more aware of, and that people should then know that there is that option to go down, really.
Yeah, in my experience, Trey, in the classroom, of being in a lot of classrooms over the last 4 years, hope is the number one driving factor
Yeah,
over everything. Over everything. Um, we had a high school with 8 out of 10 kids were getting free lunch. We're coming from underserved communities, over 80% of them. And their graduating senior class was the current, so the year we came in to help them, they were at 414 kids that went directly to college out of like a class of 750, right? Within 2 years, that jumped to 636. From 414 to 636. It jumped from 414 all the way up to 523 the first year, and then from 523 to 636 the second year, of kids going directly to college out of their, say, roughly 750 kids of their senior class. And that was simply off of giving them the hope of, meaning like, hey, we're going to tell you ahead of time, here's a program. It shows you all the colleges you can get into college ahead of time for free. Now, all you have to do is graduate high school, be eligible, and fill out the FAFSA and do everything you need to do now. So by telling them the end result, it gave them that hope. Like, oh, now I know that if I put all this time in and all this work in, I'll actually get something in return, and I'm being promised that. It's not a if, and, or what. It's a, oh, these are my options. They're there. Okay, perfect. And they put more time in. And the number one comment from all the students was, why didn't I learn about this before? So when you took the surveys, the kids are like, why would I learn about this now? Like, I should have been told about this before. Because, and it's true, because if you give them a path of exactly what you can succeed and like you can be here, all you have to do is check these here. So many more kids do it because that hope alone gives them their hope. They're like, done, I can do this and I know where I'm going and what I'm getting.
definitely, definitely. So true, especially just like as you said, giving them that hope, it then pushes them to know like this is available, and it's up to me to then put in the work to then attain this.
Exactly. Because I think too many people are told to do, we tell too many kids to do things without giving them what it'll do for them.
Yeah,
You know, same way with reading. Like when you tell a kid to read, you need to explain to them about the comprehension and the memory and how those are skills and how those relate to like playing sports. Because
yeah,
once they understand that those are actual skills, they're willing to put more time into it.
definitely agree. And what would you say are your views on the word legacy? And what legacy would you like to leave?
You know, I think the best legacy out there is just leave something better than the way you found it, which is leaving the world a better place than the way you entered it. As long as you're doing something you love, I think no matter what it is, you're leaving the planet when you pass away better than what you entered, because you were able to spread love, positivity, and do something you enjoyed doing it, which will flow over to the rest of your life, which flowed over to your friends, your family, and everything else. I think legacy sometimes is something people care too much about rather than just focusing on what's good in front of them. And what I mean by that is like when people get greedy later in life, and
Yeah,
when it comes all about money, or when it comes all about certain things that aren't really like helping, so legacy is a tough one because it should be positive,
yeah.
but not every person's legacy is positive.
No, of course, of course. I definitely think that's something that is really important, and people can sometimes get so caught up in it that they then actually get sort of like sucked into, oh my gosh, I want to have all of this, I want to be known for all of this. But sometimes it's not about being known by everyone and everything. Sometimes it's okay to maybe for everyone not to know everything about you, as long as you're then having that positive impact on those few lives. That's what matters at the end of the day, really.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know I really believe that people, we all have different people in our life that inspire us to do, whether it's good or bad. Obviously, people that are doing bad are still inspired by somebody, right? And the more that we realize that leaving something better than the way we found it, I mean, think about how much better the world would be if everybody did that, right? I mean, ultimately, we know that that's not true. but, but you would really hope that we can get to a point where it is that way, because we've seen some communities when really bad stuff has happened, how they come together. And everybody comes together and is extremely, like, they become those people that we wish we were all the time.
No, of course. And what would you say are your views on morning routines?
I think morning routines are great. And I say that because morning is a great time to be productive. I think one thing people should know is that sleeping from 10 to 6, you will feel better than if you sleep from 1 to 9. 8 hours is not the same. And so at night, like sleep before midnight is better sleep than sleep after midnight. So that's one thing I think entrepreneurs should learn. It's not thinking like, oh, I'm just gonna, go out and stay out till 2 a.m. and I'll just sleep until 10 or 11. And you're just groggy, or you're just not going to be as productive as you would be if you taken that sleep cycle and pushed it back into the night and went to bed at 10 p.m. instead of 2 a.m. And wake up at 6 a.m. because you're still getting the same amount of sleep, but you're starting much earlier. And what a lot of these people don't realize, because they never try it, is when you start that routine and you're getting up really early. I even was taking cold showers for a year straight to try that. I don't know if you've ever tried that. It's actually really good for you, and it made me feel amazing. But after a year, it helped a lot. It was great. But morning routines are great. And I don't think they need to be the same for 20 years straight. You can change them up. So like I was saying, for part of my morning routine, when I changed it up, I was taking cold showers for over a year. I stopped doing that, but I change it up. I do different things, but morning routines are great. And I think exercise is great too, because for me, when I wake up, I normally read for an hour to 2 hours every morning. And I'm not the best at being consistent with my exercise. That's the part that I'm horrible about, whether I work out one day this week and then maybe 3 or 4 days the next week. So that's the one thing I don't do as consistent. But reading every morning I do as soon as I get up. For me, that I like it. It just kind of like gets my brain moving and makes me feel sharper throughout the day. I quickly can learn if there's any new updates in my industry, things like that.
That's definitely important. Just to simply keep the brain, just keeping the brain active and just keeping the body active as well is something that's really important. Definitely does give you just like a bright and good start to your day, really.
Absolutely. And you can, for those that love golf, I mean, when you start at 6 a.m. and you're starting to work by 6:37, I mean, by, 2, 3 o'clock, you got a 7-8 hour day. And I think what some people do is they waste too much of their day when they're working. Like they say, I'm working 8 hours, but how much of that day were they on their phone? How much of that day were they having random conversations? So I think just try to be really productive in the time you do work. Breaks are great, but try to really just, it doesn't matter. I don't think you need to work 16 hours a day to be successful. I think you're just going to burn yourself out. There definitely needs to be balance. And, you hear about some guys like Gary Vee who even speak about it. And he says that's like the one regret he has, is that in his 20s, he worked too much. He wishes he knew what he knew now, because balance is healthy and successful, because it makes your brain work better when you have balance. When you're not overloading your brain on one thing, it allows you to have more clarity, because you're still thinking about work all the time, even when you're away from it. Let's be honest. We're still going to have ideas pop in our head. We have to ignore them sometimes. I mean, you're out to dinner sometimes and all of a sudden you're like, I'm zoning out because I'm thinking about work. And then someone asks me a question. I'm like, wait, what?
Definitely. I definitely think that's something important, just about like finding that balance and just making sure you're managing your time properly, really.
Exactly. And, take advantage of getting up early if you can. I mean, you'd be surprised how much more productive you feel
Yeah.
when it's noon and you've already put in 4, 5, 6 hours of work and you got the rest of the day left. But, you know, I think a lot of people that want to be entrepreneurs, though, they really need to understand that networking is a huge part of it. It's not not everyone's going to love it, but I think it's something you definitely have to do, whether you're doing it in person or online or wherever you may be doing it. You definitely need to at some point go shake some hands and try and get your foot in the door and attend seminars, attend conferences, attend things where you can shake people's hands. I mean, you said you were taken to a conference when you were 7 for the first time. Just you absorbing that was huge, because as you grow older and you're absorbing those, now by where you are now, when you walk into one, your comfort level, your ability to react and act is so much better than what, your first time at a conference. So the earlier you can start, kid, that's why I was like, your mom is rare, man. I wish all parents were like that, really just get put their kids in the, not only teach them and talk to them, but put them in those, take them there, because it allows them to absorb it. That's why I always would tell families, they always would ask me, well, what's your opinion on SATs and ACTs? I'm saying, get your kid in there as fast as get them in there early to take it, not too early, but as early as you feel, so that they can absorb the atmosphere. One of the worst mistakes you can make as a student is wait till your senior year and just take it one time, because you're always going to do better when you're more comfortable, when you already know the setup, you know how it's going to go. I know I'm going to take this section, I'm going to have this much time, then I'm going to move to this section and have this much time. I know how the teachers walk around. I know how the whole setup is. I know how to walk out. Everything is already known. So because you are already going in there, you feel more comfortable, you're going to have less anxiety, you're going to do better on the test. And so that's why these things, like when it comes to being an entrepreneur and networking, you got to put yourself out there. And when it comes to raising money, if anyone has to raise money and enter that world, it's, you're going to hear a lot of no's. You're going to start to realize that people don't care about how good your product is, how good of a mission you have. They care about results, and it's simply business. That you understand that if you're walking into somewhere where you're raising money and you're asking them for money, they expect results. They expect a return. Too many people are focusing on their mission, and what they're doing is so good that you should get involved. You need to show how you're going to show a return. You need to show traction if you have it. Those are the things you need to focus on. Then the mission will start to become more interesting when you can show them that you actually have people purchasing it or using it.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like you going to a media channel and saying, hey, I have 30 views, or hey, I have 30,000 views, or 3 million views. There's every different level. A guy I've known for 20 years, his name's Patrick Bet-David, and he sold insurance when I first met him when I was working for Paychex, a payroll company 20 years ago, about 18 years ago. And he now owns and runs an insurance company and has his own YouTube channel called Valuetainment. And he has a few million followers now, and it's incredible. I'm shocked at what he's accomplished, but he deserves every last viewer, and he worked really hard for it, and he deserves it.
No, definitely, especially just, as you said, just putting in that consistent work and just constantly getting just clear as to why you want to do it and just working on that passion, then everything else shall come along the way as a result of just like staying true to you, really.
Yes. Passion's big, I mean, ultimately, I just think you're not going to really find your passion or figure out what you really want to do unless you get really lucky or you actually search for it. And the only way you can search for it really is just reading things you're interested in and doing things you're interested in, because you will realize some things you thought you liked, you don't, or you don't want to get into. Some people think they want to be a journalist and find out they hate it, or some people think they want to be a newscaster and find out they hate it and they just want to write articles on the side. There's so many different things. I mean, I've met doctors who don't want to be a doctor. I met, so I mean, it's all, it's really different. I've seen firefighters become teachers and vice versa.
No, definitely. And what advice would you then give to your younger self?
I would teach myself all the mechanics to reading early. And what I mean by that is why this is what you're going to do, what you're going to read, and why. Find things you're interested in. If you don't like it, put it down, and we'll find something else. until you find what you like. Then you're going to start reading about that. That would be the first thing I would definitely teach myself, because that alone will allow that child to have a skill that could teach them everything on their own in case you never get involved another day in your life. If you can teach them to read, they can pretty much learn it all on themselves as they grow up. Now, I wouldn't do that to my kid, obviously, or my younger self, but that is definitely one. And I would do, in taking that a little further, I would teach my younger self that, but also teach myself that I need to throw myself out there. I need to go to conferences. I need to do these things, and this is why they're good. I think even people today don't understand why conferences and certain networking events are really good. I still think there's a lot of people out there in the workforce that don't understand how valuable networking can be, and just shaking people's hands, getting to know them, and potentially creating a contact that will last you a lifetime, that will help you in business, or just looking for jobs in the future if you need one.
No, of course. Definitely is highly important. And lastly, could you then share with the listeners where they can find you if they'd like to find out about any upcoming things that you may have?
Yeah, so right now we're making some big, exciting changes. We're looking to try and get the message out to everyone possible about how college can be free and what those steps are, and that blueprint. Where you can find me is right now we're at mytrusttoday.com. We are a hybrid service as a platform. So right now we're only visible to our districts we're working with, because we are redesigning a launch for our product that's going to go directly to the people, which will be our B2C consumer product. And right now we got about another 30 to 45 days before you'll see that up. But at mytrusttoday.com is where you can find us. You can find me on LinkedIn and search for me under my name, Jeff Fouchey. Very easy to find. As soon as we do launch, we're going to have some new stuff come out, as far as like some different things. You can follow us on LinkedIn, where you'll be able to also follow us on Instagram, and follow our stories. But ultimately, what we're going to try and do is do something for the people and get a more affordable product out there for them, and have some free information to try and get the blueprint out there to the people, and understand that free college is affordable for most. It's just a business. You have to understand how to approach it.
Of course. No, definitely. I definitely think that's important. I really do urge that you listeners go and check him out. And I'd like to thank you for coming on the Influencer Show today.
Oh man, I had a great time. I really enjoyed it. Look forward to it. These conversations are great for everybody. I think something that everybody could be useful for everyone. I just think that ultimately, I just really love the fact that you're doing this and you're a part of education, because I think that the more people we get, the more entrepreneurs in education, the better the whole atmosphere will be there, because I think a lot of change needs to happen, and we need more voices to be able to get those changes to happen.
Of course. No, I definitely think that's so important. Definitely. And I'd also like to thank you listeners for listening to the end of the interview. And please, as I said, please do go and check out Jeff and the rest of his team. And I'd like to pretty much, just thank you once again for coming on the Influencer Show. And I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and have a great day. That's it from me. Bye.
Thank you, guys.